When I first downsized, I thought I was making a financial decision, the decision to free up some capital and to give myself a bit more flexibility. But what I didn't fully appreciate was that making that one decision to downsize changed my life in ways I hadn't expected. Like a lot of people, I followed a traditional path. I worked hard, I bought a house. I worked harder, I bought a bigger house. And what that bigger house meant was more responsibility. And for a long time, that felt like progress. But what I really was a hamster on a wheel, getting up every morning, commuting into London, doing a job that didn't fulfill me, working long hours at a desk on autopilot, because that's the thing that I needed to do in order to maintain the lifestyle that I had built and to fulfill those financial obligations, paying off the mortgage, the car payments, the utilities, the school fees, etc., etc. But eventually there came a moment where I started questioning everything. In that questioning and really thinking about the life that I had built and the effort that I was having to go through in order to maintain that life, the decision to downsize wasn't dramatic. It was part of a bigger piece of processing, I guess. It came from asking, is this really what I want? And what do I actually need in order to have the life that I want in the future? When I downsized, I didn't follow a traditional methodology. I didn't buy a smaller property where I currently lived. I actually decided to move location, and I moved from Surrey to Wales. And what that afforded me was I actually got a bigger house, but I had less outgoings because I was able to pay off the mortgage. The cost of living was much cheaper in South Wales, so my council tax was lower, my electricity and gas bills were lower. So not only did I free up money that had been tied up, but my financial pressures each month was much lower. And that alone created options for me. The biggest difference in downsizing wasn't financial, it was the way that my life changed. Without those financial pressures and the pressure to maintain that work structure, life felt much simpler. And as a consequence, I felt much lighter. I didn't feel this heavy burden pushing down on my shoulders. I had less to manage, I had less to worry about. And I therefore, as I said, had a lot more options about how life would look for myself and my family. And something really interesting happens when that pressure lifts. You start to think differently, much clearer and more intentionally about the decisions that you make. Downsizing didn't just change where I lived and how I lived. It changed how I worked, what I prioritized, how much time I wanted to give to things. I didn't want to work 9 to 5 any longer. And it gave me the space to reduce my working hours, explore different ways of earning, and to follow a path that I felt passionate about and that meant I wasn't that hamster on a wheel any longer. Now, downsizing isn't for everyone. You're making choices about a life that you want when it's much easier to stay in the status quo because making changes feels uncomfortable. It's doing something outside the norm. There are emotional attachments to your home. You know, our home was where my son grew up, where we had those memories, where we had spent we'd spent a lot of time building that home. Making those decisions to change wasn't easy. It came with practical considerations. But I realized that it's not about the house. It's about the decision that moving away from that house gave us. Because when your biggest financial expense becomes smaller, your life actually becomes bigger. and I hadn't really fully appreciated that. So for me, downsizing wasn't about giving something up. It was about getting something back. And that was time, flexibility, and choice. So if you're starting to question whether your home is helping you or holding you back, I've made a video about that, about whether or not your home is potentially a trap for you. And I'll link that here. If you're starting to explore how your life could be different and how you can create more freedom in your life, then subscribe, because that's exactly the conversations that I explore on this channel, talking about my experience of moving into early retirement, downsizing my life but freeing up my life, and really talking about the lessons that I have learned along the way. So please think about joining me. And until next time, thank you for watching.